Imagine getting threatening messages with photos of yourself tied to a chair, unconscious, and you have absolutely no memory of it happening. Today's movie is based on true events that actually happened in 2004 to a girl who was gang raped because of a guy she'd met online. Sadly, the price of her trust in him was that he gathered his friends and betrayed her. Not content with that, he kept blackmailing her with her photos and threatening to expose her to make her carry out his vile demands. And here's the terrifying part. More than 15 years later, we find the exact same incident repeating itself for a second time, but this time with her as a teacher, and on her wedding day, with the exact same details. She falls asleep and wakes up to find a strange number sending her photos of herself, naked and tied to a chair, unable to comprehend when or where this happened to her. Before we tell the story from the beginning, we want to note that this recap is based on true events that happened in Korea, though this time some minor details were changed, like the characters' names, to protect their privacy. Because of this case, the statute of limitations law in Korea's courts was actually changed to impose harsher punishment. Before we dive in, if you're new here, hit subscribe and like this video so you don't miss the next recap, and drop a comment telling me what you think is about to happen. Now, let's get into it. The events begin with Mina, a pretty student, an only child, with no real problems. The biggest thing she could ever be blamed for is not listening to her mom, which shows the moment her mother stops her before she leaves the house and asks, "Did you put on makeup again to go to school?" Mina just walks off quickly before her mom can pull her back. As soon as she gets to school, she shows off in front of her friends. "I'm finally going to meet Kim, someone she's been talking to for over a month, who she knows is a couple of grades older than her." When they finally meet, it's obvious he's drawn to her. They go have lunch together, and afterwards stop by a karaoke place to spend some time alone. As soon as the mood turns good, Mina calls her mom and tells her she's staying over at her friend's house because the friend's parents are traveling and won't be back until late, and she's scared to be alone. Before her mom can even object, she hangs up right away. Unfortunately, that turns into a trap because Kim asks her to come to his place so they can have some privacy. As soon as she feels the alcohol starting to hit her, she gets up quickly and tells him, "That's enough for today. If I'm out any later, my mom will worry." But Kim plays the innocent angel and tells her good times fly by fast, so just stay 10 more minutes. Once he's sure she's about to lose consciousness, he gives her a terrifying look because his plan is about to come true and hands her a bottle of herbal medicine, claiming it'll cancel out the effect of the alcohol. And that's where the real hell begins, because what he'd actually given her was a sedative. After a while, as Mina slowly starts regaining consciousness, she finds herself tied to a chair, her head heavy, her vision blurred, and she hears Kim's voice talking to someone. "No one touches her before me. After that, do whatever you want." In that moment, Mina lives through the most terrifying moment of her life. She sees Kim walking out of the room holding a camera, dragging his friends behind him, their faces covered, and he covers her mouth so she can't scream and expose what's happening. And in the most heartless way imaginable, they keep laughing and swearing at each other, saying, "We need to put out a video like the ones we watch on sites, so it gets a decent number of views and we make some good money." The strange part, at that exact same moment, in a completely different place, we find the teacher, Sian, suddenly getting threatening messages on her phone reading, "I am the master, and you must follow my orders." Without any explanation, he sends her photos of herself, tied to a chair, unconscious, half-dressed, in the exact same position Mina had been tied in. She goes into shock, looking around herself in terror, because she has no memory of any of it. She doesn't even know when the photos were taken or who did this to her. She rewinds a day in her mind, hoping to piece together any clue that might help her, because when she'd arrived at class that day, she found her students had thrown her a surprise party, decorating everywhere with balloons to celebrate her upcoming wedding. She was shocked and asked how they even found out, since she'd kept it a secret to avoid the evil eye. But it turns out Hien, the class president, happened to overhear her on the phone arranging the wedding preparations. At the end of the day, when she went into the teacher's room, she found her students had left her a gift on the desk, including a cup of coffee she loves, and she drank it right away without thinking twice. From that point, she doesn't remember anything until the next day, when Hien wakes her up because she'd fallen asleep at her desk. Before she can even process what happened or how she ended up like that, she notices red marks on her wrists, as if she'd been tied up. Suddenly, she gets a threatening message with her photos attached, from a strange number using a Marionette doll as its profile photo, a puppet that moves on strings, because the criminal treats his victims like toys in his hands, controlling them with strings made of the photos and videos he's holding over them. Back to Mina. The moment she gets home, she's hit with the same threatening message and photos, now with videos too, waiting for her. She breaks down crying, not knowing how she's supposed to handle the disaster she's in. So her mom won't notice anything's wrong. She quickly pretends to be asleep before her mother can see the state she's in and start asking questions. Cian, meanwhile, sends the number a message trying to figure out who he is and what he wants. But every reply is the same. I am the master. You must follow my orders. With no other option, she goes back to check the school's security footage from the day she fell asleep at her desk, hoping to find out who left her the coffee. But security tells her, unfortunately, the cameras were down that day. It becomes clear everything had been planned from the start. She tries to push down the fear and shock inside her and act normal so her fiancé and his family don't notice anything when she meets them to finalize the wedding arrangements, since they're deeply attached to her, and if they ever saw something like this, everything would fall apart from every direction. But the criminal doesn't let up. He deliberately sends her threatening messages at that exact moment, asking her, "So, what are you wearing right now?" As if he's watching her, seeing exactly what she's doing. When she doesn't reply, he raises the level of the threats and sends her a mocking nickname along with a link containing explicit photos of teacher Cian. She feels like she can't hold herself together anymore and rushes to the bathroom. On the other side, Mina has hit her breaking point from the horror she's living through and suggests to her mom, "What do you think about moving to another city instead of us being stuck here?" Her mom senses something's wrong with her daughter and asks, "Did you have a fight with your friends at school? I've noticed you've been locking yourself in your room for days without going out at all." Since Mina doesn't have the courage to tell her mom what she's really going through, she cuts the conversation off and walks away. The moment she steps outside, she finds the devil himself, Kim, standing in front of her, smiling, saying, "I missed you. How could you ignore my messages like this?" She's stunned. How does he know where she lives? How did he even dare come all the way here? He keeps mocking her. "Did you forget that during the month we were together, you told me your whole life story, where you live, and the restaurant your mom opened for you because you love fast food?" At this point, she's reached her absolute limit, and she drops to her knees, begging him, "Just leave me alone, and I promise I'll never tell anyone what happened between us for the rest of my life." But none of that matters to him. He's brought his friends along again, since the video scheme made them good money and he wants to do it again. He hands her the herbal bottle with the sedative and threatens her. "Either you drink it like a good girl so we can get this over with tonight, or your photos get spread across the whole school group chat." Out of fear and helplessness, Mina drinks it and lives through this torment for a second time, right in the middle of her breakdown, feeling like she's trapped in a nightmare she'll never wake up from. Cian is going through the exact same feelings, but she tries to find a way out and calls her mom to ask if she has Detective Chan's number, the only person who might be able to help, since he used to be a police officer. Right then, we see Chan working an ordinary desk job, looking like a completely reformed, upstanding citizen, so much so that he's lecturing the kids playing next to him about manners, saying, "I really don't know how this generation is going to turn out when they grow up." Suddenly, he sees Cian walk in, and he tenses up, unable to string two words together. Wanting to break the awkwardness between them, she asks, "When did you quit the police force?" And before he can even answer, she jumps straight to her next question. "Do you know anything about Kim?" And here's the shock. Cian and Mina are actually the same person, one and the same, in the past and in the present. Unfortunately for her, she's living through the exact same nightmare for a second time. As for Chan, he was the officer originally assigned to the case, before he left the force, because after Kim posted Mina's video, it went viral and the whole thing became a huge public scandal, to the point she couldn't even walk down the street without reporters chasing her everywhere. Chan had felt guilty ever since, because the investigation was supposed to remain confidential to protect her privacy, but someone leaked the story to the press. Not wanting to repeat the same mistake twice, Cian lies to Chan and tells him she's only looking for Kim to ask him something, but Chan isn't convinced, and tells her that ever since Kim left the police force and the village, he's essentially vanished, with no news of him anywhere. While driving home, she suddenly has a panic attack and can't catch her breath because all the memories she'd buried inside her for years come rushing back. She pulls over on the road and takes one of the sedatives that never leave her bag, just to get through her day without the suffering showing on her face. Chan, meanwhile, reaches out to a fellow officer he knows to get the latest news related to the case, and is shocked to learn Kim is now wanted for filming assault videos of young girls and students and posting them online. But so far, they haven't been able to pin down his location. On the other side, we meet a mysterious man named Yang, wearing a black cap and covering most of his face, walking down the street, constantly glancing around like someone who's done something terrible and is terrified of getting caught. Suddenly, he stops beside an unmarked car and receives an envelope stuffed with cash from whoever's inside. The strange part is that his son, who isn't even 13 years old, is locked in his room in front of a screen, watching the very assault videos of students being posted on that site. Cian, meanwhile, isolates herself from everyone, even her fiancé, and stops replying to him. Suddenly, she gets a message from the master. Meet me at the school storage room if you want to know the whole truth. Without a second thought, she runs there, and that's when the real shock hits. Someone has left her the same herbal bottle he'd used to drug her with back then, along with a note that just says, "Ready." At that exact moment, she imagines him standing behind her, holding a camera, filming her. She breaks down, screaming and crying. Once she calms down and pulls herself together, she leaves the storage room and, from the window, spots Hien, the class president, standing behind the building, arguing with a girl. She's surprised, since he's one of the top students with no history of trouble. Later, when she goes back to the classroom to check her work, she gets another message from the master. "You didn't follow my orders. I'm upset now." Suddenly, she notices all the students around her pulling out their phones. They've all just received messages from the master's number, warning that photos of one of their classmates are about to be sent out. In that moment, Cian is living through one of the hardest moments of her life, and she starts screaming at them, "Turn off your phones right now. We're in the middle of class." But when she realizes none of them are even paying attention to her, too curious to see whose photos are about to leak, her panic spikes to the point she hides under the desk. When the photos finally arrive, she's shocked to see they're of Yang, one of her students. The moment Yang notices her classmates staring at her, she bolts out of the classroom, unable to face the situation. Cian has Hien collect everyone's phones to delete the photos, then runs out after Yang to find her, until she finally finds her sitting in the garden, crying. She stays by her side until she calms down, then suggests she report it to the police to get justice. But Yang is terrified the news will reach the media, and instead of the scandal staying inside the school, it'll be exposed to the entire world. Crying, Yang tells her it all started with a message from the master asking her to meet him in the storage room. She thought it was all just a game, nothing serious, but when she went, she found the herbal bottle, and after she drank it, what happened. At that point, Cian's mind goes somewhere completely different, because she notices Yang is wearing the exact same uniform as the girl she'd seen arguing with Hien behind the building. As soon as she gets home, she finds her fiancé waiting, since she'd forgotten their appointment with the wedding planner. To smooth things over a bit, she tells him what happened with Yang, and his response crushes her. He says he feels for Yang and everything, but honestly, who knows? Maybe she gave them a reason too, and besides, now that the photos and videos are already out there, her life is basically ruined anyway. Cian tries to push past it, and the next day at school, she talks to Yang and asks about the real nature of her relationship with Hien, since she saw them arguing, which makes her start to suspect he might have had a hand in what happened to her. Yang tells her the whole story from the start. Exactly a year ago, she'd had a crush on him and confessed her feelings, and he used it against her, pressuring her into coming to his apartment. One time, she used his computer and was horrified to find it full of photos and videos of girls, including a video of herself with him. When she asked him to delete them, he threatened that if she ever told anyone, he'd spread the videos everywhere and expose her. Even though Cian feels deeply sympathetic toward her, something still feels off. Since Hien has always seemed calm, it doesn't seem like him to be capable of all this. Unable to get past what her fiancé said, she decides to distance herself from him. When Hien, confused about why she's avoiding him, stops by her place, he's shocked to find she's changed the door code so he can't get in. She stays locked away for days, unable to process who could be doing this to her. Was it really Hien, or is Kim reopening old wounds all over again? She calls Chan and asks what he's found so far. He tells her Kim is on the run, wanted on multiple charges, and asks her exactly what she wants from him, and whether he's done something else to her. She cuts the call short, since he's the last person she can trust, but thanks him for his help. From that point on, she decides to dig for the truth herself. She waits outside school for Hien, and the moment he steps out, she follows him to see exactly what he's up to. That's when she sees a whole new side of him, smoking, going into a bar. She covers her face with her scarf and quickly slips in after him, trying to peek from behind the door to see who he's with. Suddenly, one of his friends spots her, and she takes off running before they can catch her. Strangely, Hien and his gang chase after her, and if Chan hadn't suddenly appeared, grabbing her hand and pulling her into hiding down an abandoned street, they would have caught her, and who knows what they would have done. She asks him, "Since when exactly have you been watching me, and why?" He tells her that ever since she called him, he was certain something serious was going on, so serious she couldn't even bring herself to report it. So he'd been trying to protect her, not stalk her. Realizing he won't get any useful information out of her otherwise, he offers, "How about I'm honest with you, and you tell me what's really going on too?" He admits it was actually him who leaked her case to the media back then, in exchange for money, and that the guilt has haunted him ever since. That's why he resigned from the force. Cian shuts down even more and tells him, "You're only confessing this to ease your own conscience. Honestly, none of it matters to me anymore. What's done is done. But if I see you around again, you won't like how I react," and walks off, leaving him behind. Chan feels guiltier than ever and keeps digging into the case on his own. He catches one of Hyun's gang members and beats the information out of him instead of taking the slow route. The guy explains that Hyun is one of us, but he's still new, meaning someone above him outranks him, and besides, without his father, he'd be nothing, since his dad has been in the business for a year. Chan records everything and goes undercover, asking them why they were chasing the girl at the bar. They tell him the orders come from someone called the Master, and they're just carrying them out, nothing more, after which the money comes through, and it was him who ordered them to watch Sian and film an assault video. Chan is stunned, even though he'd suspected this was what happened to her. Deep down he'd hoped it was all just paranoia, nothing more. Afterward, meeting with the officer keeping him updated, he learns that the student Hyun was arrested a while back over the assault videos of young students he'd been posting on a site. But since he's still a minor, the law prevents him from being imprisoned, so in the end, he just gets a warning and walks free. The point, though, is that Hyun and people like him are just puppets in the hands of someone above them, someone pulling their strings and giving the orders. When Chan puts all these pieces together, he concludes that Kim must be the Master, since every one of his victims is a young student. Without a second thought, he calls Sian repeatedly until she finally picks up and tells her, "I'm waiting outside your building. I have important information you need to know right now." Bracing herself, she goes down to meet him, and he explains it's highly likely Kim is the Master, but more importantly, she absolutely cannot try to handle this on her own or watch Hyun behind his back, because they might film her too. Just imagining that makes her extremely anxious, and she promises that if anything new comes up, she'll contact him first. Right as he's about to pay the bill and head back, he finds Sian has fainted. Her photos had already spread online again. He stays with her until she comes to and takes her home. The problem is, even when they try to trace the account that posted the photos, they find it's been hacked, its location showing as some foreign country. Sian feels the nightmare she thought she'd escaped is repeating all over again, and she locks herself in her house, unable to face the world. Meanwhile, Chan is doing everything he can for her when he runs into the journalist who'd leaked the case information years ago. The journalist has come specifically to squeeze information out of him one way or another, slipping an envelope full of cash into his pocket, since that's the only way to get through to him, telling him, "Let's bring back the glory days. I win, you win." Chan holds himself back and says, "Let's go talk somewhere quieter." Walls have ears, takes him to an empty spot, and beats every ounce of frustration out of him, warning him that if he publishes anything related to the case, or even thinks about exposing her, it'll be the last day of his career. On the other side, we find Sian locked in the bathroom, a farewell letter to her mother beside her, because she's decided to end her life. She keeps looking through photos of herself and her fiancé to say goodbye to him too. But suddenly, everything flips upside down. The Master sends her a video of Yan, tied to a chair, screaming for help, begging to be saved, along with the address of the location. Of course, he makes sure to warn her to come alone. If she so much as thinks about involving the police, he'll release the photos and expose her. At this point, Sian is torn between two choices: raising the white flag, giving up, and ending her life, or stepping up as a teacher and helping the student crying out for her help. She remembers what Yan told her: "I don't want to live my life as a coward, having to run away, change my identity and my name, and stay hidden for the rest of my life." Those words hit her hard, and she throws the farewell letter she'd written into the trash and sends Chan a message telling him she's on her way to help Yan. The moment Chan sees the message, he heads out after her immediately, to catch up before anything happens to her. Sian arrives at the address and is shocked to find it's an abandoned building. As soon as she walks in, she finds they've left her the herbal medicine bottle. Even though she knows it'll knock her out, she drinks it anyway, willing to do anything to save Yan. The moment she wakes up from a sedative, she finds herself tied to a chair, surrounded by several masked figures. Among them, she's able to recognize Hyun, standing off to the side, alone. She asks him, "Why are you doing all this? I'm sure the older guys are forcing you into it, right? Just tell me the truth and I can help you." She notices the rest of the group mocking, and it's clear he really is being forced into all of this. The moment she asks about Yan, she hears her voice calling out, begging, "Save me from here quickly." Then, suddenly, the real shock hits. Yang walks in on her own 2 feet, completely fine, laughing, and asks her, "Seriously, Seriously? You actually believed you were a victim? How gullible can you be? Cian sits there in total shock, unable to process anything, and asks, so if you're one of them, then what about all the photos that got leaked? Yang explains there are plenty of girls willing to do anything, even let themselves be filmed for money. It was all just a setup, nothing more. As for Hien, Yang tells her the real story. He was actually the one who had a crush on her and tried to confess, and she used that against him, taking advantage of him to help her film videos with other girls so she could blackmail them. When she felt he was getting tired of it and wanted out, especially after his arrest, she started threatening him with the videos he appeared in, since of course, if his father ever found out, his whole world would collapse. Hien apologizes to Cian, since he's not happy with what he's been made to do, but there's nothing he can do to help her either way. Cian is in shock, unable to process that a handful of students are behind all of this. She asks Yan who the master really is, and Yan laughs sarcastically. Honestly, he wishes he could be the master, but unfortunately, it's not me. I'm just a middleman, carrying out orders and getting paid for it. After feeling sympathetic toward them, believing they were being exploited terribly by whoever's above them, Cian realizes it's actually them feeding this whole system, willing to sell themselves for even less, just for the money. She tells Yang, I swear you'll regret every single moment you did something wrong, but Yang just laughs sarcastically, surprised by the confidence in her voice, and opens a live stream to film her and expose her all over again. At that exact moment, Chan finally arrives, safe and brimming with confidence, and tells them, I'm going to teach every one of you some manners, starting now, and charges at them. In under a few minutes, though, he's the one thrown to the ground, stripped, and tied up next to Cian, his whole body covered in bruises. Numbers beat courage every time. After all, they're about to film him too, but suddenly they hear police sirens and scramble to escape before getting caught. In that moment, Cian calmly gets up from the chair. She'd actually loosened the rope around her wrists a while ago, but let them believe she was still tied up so she could uncover the truth. She chases after Yang as fast as she can, and the moment she catches her, she slaps her hard across the face, giving her back a fraction of what she did to her, and if the officer hadn't pulled her off, she wouldn't have stopped there. At this point, they managed to pull the real master's number from Yang's phone and try to track his location, racing to reach him before he finds out what happened and disappears. Cian insists to the officer that she wants to come along, since she needs to see the real criminal for herself, but Chan refuses, knowing there's real danger to her life, and offers to take her to the hospital first to get her injuries treated, saying, after that, we'll all go together, me, you, mom, dad, Nahid, all of us. In the middle of Cian feeling restless because she wants to stay close to them no matter what, the police discover the number belongs to Yang, the mysterious man seen earlier walking the streets, whose son had been watching the assault videos. They learn he's actually been wanted for a while on 2 charges, distributing hacked accounts and money laundering. The moment the officer locates his address, he sends it to Chan, making him promise to go alone, without Cian, but Cian sticks to him like glue, certain he might slip away and leave her behind the second he gets the chance. When the police reach the address, they run into Yang right at the door by pure coincidence. Naturally, without a second thought, he bolts, and they chase him down until they finally catch him. Strangely, when they question him about the videos and the students he'd been controlling like puppets, he's genuinely shocked. He has no idea what they're talking about, and simply says, I need a lawyer. On the other side, when Cian and Chan reach the address, she insists on going inside the house out of curiosity, wanting to see how he actually lives. The moment his son sees them wandering around casually, he freezes in place and starts crying. Cian tries to reassure him, we're not here to hurt you, don't be scared of us. Chan, meanwhile, focuses on the details around him and notices certificates of achievement in programming hanging everywhere, all belonging to Yang's son. To confirm the suspicion forming in his head, he pulls out his phone and dials the master's number, and here comes the real shock. The phone rings in the son's pocket. In other words, the master turns out to be a child who isn't even 13 years old. When they question him, they discover his father was originally the one behind the video scheme, but once the police started closing in and arresting people, he shut it all down. Unfortunately, the phone with all the numbers ended up in his son's hands, and out of curiosity and boredom, the boy kept going down the same path, treating it as nothing more than a game. Since legally he can't be sentenced to prison, he's given a warning and released. In the end, Cian feels an odd sense of relief that the criminal turned out to just be a child experimenting with something new out of curiosity, and with some psychological support, he'd likely be able to improve. The officer then informs her that Yang has since passed away. He couldn't bear living with the charges against him and took his own life. And here, Chan hands her a gift, her old glasses, the same ones she used to wear back when she was a student before it all happened, hoping this would help her finally stop running from her past and reconnect with who she used to be.